The competition for a state and the 1948 war. Why was a Jewish state created in Palestine and not an Arab state or a state for the Palestinian non-Jews? Understanding the answer to this question is key to understanding the Arab-Israeli conflict. Now, there are many reasons that the Jews were successful in winning a state. Superior military might, a unified leadership, clear national objectives, the expulsion of Jews from Europe ending in the Holocaust, support from Great Britain and the United States, and the development of national institutions. In this video, let us discuss the Zionist movement's development of proto-national institutions, which were crucial to their success and the success of the Yeshuv, or the Jewish community in Palestine, to establish a unified community and leadership. Let me enumerate some of these institutions. The Zionist organization, which was established in 1897, later to become the World Zionist Organization, was founded at the initiative of Theodor Herzl at the First World Zionist Congress, which took place in 1897 in Basel, Switzerland. The goals of the Zionist movement were Zionism aims at establishing for the Jewish people a legally assured home in Palestine. The promotion of the settlement of Jewish farmers, artisans, and tradesmen in Palestine. The federation of all Jews into local or general groups according to the laws of the various countries. And the strengthening of the national sentiment and national consciousness of the Jewish people. Now, another institution was the World Zionist Congress, or the Parliament of the Jewish People, which was also established in 1897. There was the Jewish Colonial Trust, which was designed to handle finances for the Yeshuv. And again, the Yeshuv is the Jewish community in Palestine, which distinguishes it from the broader Jewish population of the world. There's also the Jewish National Fund, which was established in 1901. The Jewish National Fund was designed to raise money in the diaspora, that means the Jewish communities scattered around the world, to purchase land in Palestine for Jewish settlement. Its primary purpose was the acquisition of land of Palestinians for the Jewish people. In 1939, 10% of the Jewish population of the British Mandate of Palestine, or the Yeshuv, lived on Jewish National Fund land. By 1948, the Jewish National Fund had acquired 54% of the land held by Jews in the region. After the establishment of Israel in 1948, the government began to sell land taken from Palestinians and transfer it to the Jewish National Fund. Today, the Jewish National Fund manages some 93% of the land of Israel. The Jewish National Fund stipulates that only Jews can buy, mortgage, or lease Jewish National Fund land. And this is a way to keep the land of Palestine from being bought by Arabs or being transferred from Jewish control to Arab control. The land isn't sold outright, it's leased on long-term leases. And this helps to keep the land designated for Jews. The Jewish Agency, which was formed in 1921, started as the primary organization responsible for the immigration and absorption of Jews from the diaspora to Israel. In time, it became the quasi-government of the Jewish community in Palestine. It worked with the National Assembly of some 300 elect delegates, which in turn selected a National Council, which was treated by the British Mandate government as a legitimate representative of Palestine Jewry. Kibbutz. Kibbutz are collective farms. They were first one was established in 1909, and they were designed to help settle the land that was being acquired by the Jewish National Fund. The kibbutz began as utopian communities based on a combination of socialism and Zionism. By 1950, the number of Israelis living in kibbutzes was 65,000 and accounted for about 7.5% of the total Jewish population of Palestine. The Histadrut provided employment and an ideological framework for Jewish immigrants to Palestine. it instituted a boycott of Arab workers and products to promote the self-sufficiency of Jewish labor. Haganah. The Haganah was formed in 1921 following Arab attacks. It is worth mentioning the Haganah at some length because it has been so central to the success of Israel. In Hebrew, Haganah means the defense. And from small defense groups active during the Ottoman era, the Haganah evolved into a national army of Israel, which is today called the Israeli Defense Forces. After Arab riots against Jews in April 1920, the Yeshuv's leadership saw the need to create a nationwide underground defense organization that they called the Haganah. Following the 1929 Palestine riots, the Haganah's role changed dramatically. It became a much larger organization, encompassing nearly all the youth and adults in the Jewish settlements, as well as thousands of members from the cities. The Haganah became a full-scale defense force after the 1936 to 39 Arab revolt in Palestine. It developed an organizational structure and a true command. At that time, the Haganah fielded 10,000 men, along with about 40,000 reservists. During the Arab Revolt, the British also helped to form several Jewish police forces to protect settlements and the Yeshuv. This force would be crucial in the success of the Yeshuv in the 1948 war. The British helped the Yeshuv advance its military preparedness in other ways as well. During World War II, the British organized and trained the Jewish Brigade, which consisted of 5,000 soldiers who were deployed in North Africa. They gained invaluable training and experience fighting alongside the British and against the Germans. And they helped form the elite of the Haganah in the 1948 war. At every stage of the 48 war for Palestine that pit the Yeshuv against the Arabs, the total number of Jewish troops, both regular and irregular, in the Palestine theater exceeded that of the Arabs. In May 1948, the IDF fielded over 35,000 soldiers as compared to the Arabs, who only had 25,000. By mid-July of 48, the IDF fielded some 65,000 men. By December, its number reached 96,000. These institutions, the World Zionist Organization, the World Zionist Congress, the Jewish Colonial Trust, the Jewish National Fund, the Jewish Agency, Kibbutz, Histadrut, and the Haganah, helped to organize and expand the Yeshuv and its control over Palestine. The Zionist organizations were more extensive and capable than Arab organizations. The Jewish community was better organized, financed, and connected than the Arabs. Palestinian society could not have been more different from Jewish society in Europe. It was never able to match the Yeshuv in social organization, leadership, institutions, or even national consciousness. Palestinian society was disoriented following the destruction of the Ottoman Empire by the British Army in World War I, whereas European Jews had been conditioned by a century of national and constitutional development in Europe. Arabs were new to the ideas that underpinned nationalism. Palestinian society remained largely traditional. It was organized around village institutions and what had been called the politics of the notables. Leading families, whose wealth was based on landholding, dominated the political and economic life of each town or city. Bitter rivalries between leading Palestinian families doomed national cohesion. The most famous of these rivalries was between the Husseini and Nashashibi families of Jerusalem, who vied for top office and refused to cooperate, even when it was necessary to advance Palestinian interests in the mandate. This lack of cohesion and failure to develop national institutions that should have mobilized and directed broader Palestinian society turned into a serious liability. One example of this weakness was the failure of the Palestinians to produce a unified national army by 1948, when it was most needed. Most Arab militias in Palestine remained organized by village and were designed to defend the village and not the nation. This fragmentation made it easy for the British administrators and later Israelis to divide the Palestinians and play one faction off against the other. Notables from Palestinian Muslim Christian associations did form a Palestinian Arab Congress in 1920, and it appointed an Arab executive under the presidency of Musa al-Husseini, a former mayor of Jerusalem. But the British refused to recognize it, claiming that it was not representative and could not speak for all Palestinians. This British attitude doomed the Arab executive as an effective instrument of Palestinian authority. When Musa al-Husseini died in 1934, the Arab executive ceased to exist. Instead of helping to develop the authority of the Palestinian Arab Congress, the British sought to manage the Palestinians by the creation of what it called the Supreme Muslim Council. The British High Commissioner, Sir Herbert Samuel, an ardent Zionist himself, appointed Haj Amin al-Husseini to head the Supreme Muslim Council. He was the Mufti, or chief Muslim authority, of Jerusalem. Haj Amin was thus able to expand his authority from Jerusalem to all of Palestine. He remained a divisive leader who tried to balance British interests with those of the Palestinians he was to represent. In the competition for statehood, the ability and success in building national institutions is only one measure. Literacy rates, for example, in 1932, were 86% amongst the Jews of Palestine, compared to 22% for the Palestinian Arabs. This short survey of Arab and Jewish institutions and the social organization in Palestine is meant to highlight the differences between the two different societies. It also helps to explain the superior institutional strength of the Yishuv as it entered into the 1948 war, the true test of the strength of both societies. The Jews developed quasi-state institutions that helped them win the struggle for statehood and national independence. The Palestinians, on the other hand, had a weak national consciousness. Their allegiance was to family, village, and faction. This fragmentation ultimately was their undoing.